2011 meeting of the Lake Forest Historic Preservation Commission. The commission is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, neighbors, and architects, to continue the tradition that was established nearly 40 years ago in this community. That tradition is a review process that allows community members to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique characteristics that make Lake Forest a special community. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and democratic meetings. To achieve that goal, meeting procedures have been adopted by the Commission. A copy of the procedures is available at the back of the room on each agenda. As always, it is the intent of the Commission to help manage the development and growth of the City of Lake Forest with a keen sense of preserving historic structures and open spaces in the city for all its present and future residents. Our goal is to move each petition before us tonight through the review process as quickly as possible while balancing the interests of the petitioners, the neighboring property owners, and the larger commission. Good evening. I'm Bill Ransom. I'm acting chair this evening until our regular chair, Kurt Pretz, joins us. He's running a little bit late. Starting at my right, I'll ask the other commissioners to introduce themselves.
Mary Ellen Swenson.
Virginia McTier.
Jim Preschlag.
Okay. This evening, the first item on our agenda is the approval of the January 26th and February 23rd meeting minutes. Has the commissioners?
There were just a few typos. I sent them to Kathy. She's recorded them, so I move that the minutes be accepted as corrected.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the meeting minutes are approved. The second item we have is on the consent agenda. It's a request for a modification to an approved plan, including modified window openings and replacement windows for the resident at 1435 North Lake Road. Is there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications regarding this?
No.
Hearing none, does any commissioner want this item removed and put on the regular? No. Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda item passes. The next item we have this evening is a continued petition request for a certificate of appropriateness for modifications to a previously approved plan and a building scale variance for a residence at 1 Stonegate Road. Do I have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications?
No.
Okay. The petitioner can proceed with their presentation not to exceed 10 minutes.
Good evening. Thanks for hearing our petition tonight. I'm Diana Melikar, and my firm is assuming the role of project architect for subsequent design responsibilities for the Jakubowski residence at 1 Stonegate. In 2009 to 2010, prior to our commission on this project, much new construction was commenced that was not sympathetic to the original home's massing, scale, and stylistic appropriateness. In general, we propose to modify the problematic 2009 to 2010 additions that are still under construction and make the home more sympathetic to its 1907 Georgian design. In undertaking this project, we have dedicated our efforts to the following project goals: reinstate the historic integrity and detailing to the final renovations and improvements, propose modifications that are in keeping with the home's original Georgian Revival style and building history, and decrease square footage overages created by present construction conditions. I'm sure that you're familiar with the historic photos of this home. However, I'd like to show them again to illustrate how our proposed design concepts are consistent with the original home's Georgian Revival design. This is an image of the home taken sometime in the 1960s. The home exhibits classic Georgian Revival characteristics, including a dominating main building block form and prominent central entry feature. symmetrically balanced elevational treatment with regular rhythms of wall spacing and window openings, a heavy cornice with modillions to terminate the vertical wall surface, and pedimented roof dormers that sit on the roof rather than break the cornice line. This is an image of the home taken sometime in the early 20th century. Here you can see another feature of the Georgian Revival style, and that is the classically detailed porch, which is added to the main building block form in a subordinated manner. This image shows the lakeside central covered porch that was added to the main building block form in 1907. This symmetrically placed feature was flanked by open terraces. It was large enough to accommodate outdoor living and took advantage of the home's siting. And finally, you see this early 20th century image that the driveway approach and the land design worked in concert with the formal Georgian symmetry of the home. Visitors arrived from Stonegate Road on axis with the front portico, and a spacious green lawn provided an estate-like formal terminus to the drive. For the rest of my presentation, I will illustrate our proposed building corrections and modifications by comparing the existing building conditions to our proposed designs.
Before you go on, our chairman's here now, and if he wants to come up and join us, I'll relinquish my chair. And he can.
Good job. My apologies. I was
no,
listening
thank you.
to the
Okay. As my 8-year-old would say, do I get a little extra time now before bedtime?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. This image shows the 2009 floor plan layout. Georgian Revival building footprints should be comprised of simple rectangular forms with additive elements, such as porches and servant wings that are typically symmetrically placed. In this case, there are several locations where the pristine Georgian form is compromised by bump outs, most notably on the lakeside and front entry areas. They're shown in that orange color. You can see that the massive lakeside bump out intrudes into the floor plan symmetry and compromises living room proportions. Fireplaces are not centered in the rooms, and the screen porch with its flanking terraces have been narrowed to circulation paths. The garage is configured in such a way that there is not enough space to provide a green lawn driveway termination and adequately access the garage doors. The result is a large impervious parking pad adjacent to the home's front entry portico. This image is our proposed first floor plan. First, we have eliminated floor plan bump outs to reinstate the Georgian building block form. In doing so, porches and terraces have ample width to occupy for outdoor living. Second, we have reorganized the main floor plan so that it embodies the symmetry of the east-west site axis, reinstates formal room sizes and flow, and balances the living room and dining room fireplaces. Third, we have redesigned the service wing. At the garage, we have shifted the focal point of the building mass away from the front entry portico. This allows us to provide a green lawn at the driveway terminus once again. This image shows the existing front facade of the home today. The broad horizontal bump out at the front entry is incongruent with the Georgian aesthetic, and its proportions overtake the front facade. In our proposed design, we remove the entry area bump out to make the front wall flush. We redesigned the portico and front door to reinforce the home's original rhythm of window and wall spacings, to complement the dominant building mass, and to reinstate the classical detailing similar to the original porch shown on the right. This image shows the entire western facade of the home today. As you can see on the left, the garage design and massing are not consistent with the original home's main building block. Looking from the south, the service wing is extremely long and horizontal, again violating Georgian proportions. Its connection to the main house is improperly detailed, as its roof is taller than the family room wing where it intersects. In contrast, our proposed garage design articulates the service wing building mass. The garaging is visually separated from the service area. We minimize the garage's apparent wall height by utilizing an appropriate Georgian gambrel roof form. This technique properly subordinates the garage service wing to the main mass of the house. Garage dormers do not break the roof eaves and are proportionally scaled down from the original home. The service area is detailed to resemble a connecting link, similar to a breezeway with arcuated fenestration. Its roof will be lowered so its ridge intersects below the family roof ridge on the main house. On the left is an image of the south side of the home, and on the right is an image of the lake side of the home. You can see the large one-story bump out that is stylistically ruining the pristine Georgian block form of the house. You can see in the right-hand image how the present bump out condition pinches the porch and terrace, so they no longer function for outdoor living, rather are sized for circulation only. This image shows the lake facade previously proposed in 2009. The horizontal ribbons of windows on the bump out and right side family room area are contrary to the Georgian wall and window rhythms of the home. Our proposed lakeside elevation pulls the first floor bump out framing back inward toward the home and layers out the second floor to restore an overall flush effect of the lake facade. We eliminate the large horizontally proportioned expanses of glass and provide a fenestration pattern that is sympathetic with the Georgian style, incorporating both glazing and solid wall. This image is taken on the northwest side of the garage. You can see the excessive wall height and inappropriate use of building forms again. Because of its largeness, the garage massing competes for dominance with the main home's building mass. Also stylistically, the garage design is not consistent with Georgian Revival principles. The dormers are overly large and break the cornice line, and the garage's western bump out is disconcerting. Here's the proposed north elevation. The Georgian forms are consistent throughout the design of the entire building, and they are articulated to create a unified composition. Finally, by consistently applying Georgian design principles to the building form, the result has been a significant reduction in building square footage. This diagram indicates the areas where we reduced the bulk of the home. The red areas indicate where we eliminated existing bump outs and trimmed the footprint due to our articulating the building massing. The pink area indicates the bulk reduced at the garage due to introduction of the gambrel roof form. In conclusion, the proposed design will reinstate a Georgian building form and detailing. It will also reorganize the proposed first floor plan and all the floor plans so it internally functions for 21st century contemporary living conditions. The proposed changes will help to ensure that this lakefront home will once again become a visual and functional asset to our community. Thank you.
Do we have a staff report?
We sure do.
Great.
Hi, Chairman Parris, Commissioners. This item is before the Historic Preservation Commission to acknowledge and accept the demolition that's happened to the structure so far, and also to review and take action on the replacement design that was described in detail by the representative this evening. Since this was before the commission back in November, staff has met numerous times with the homeowners and the consultants to put together a packet that is consistent with the direction that the owners heard at the last meeting, which was to reduce the appearance of bulk and really improve the proportions and architectural detailing of the structure to be consistent with the historic architecture of the house. In this case, the petitioners are proposing a significant reduction in the visual appearance of bulk. However, due to some structural necessities, the additional bulk has been added in the attic area. So in addition to taking action on the replacement design, the Commission is also required to take action on an additional building scale that's 4% over the building scale variance that was approved back in 2007. I would like to just point out some of the conditions of approval that are in the staff report, the recommended conditions of approval. The first being that the Commission appoint a subcommittee to review the final permit drawings as the plans move from the drawings that you see tonight into final permit drawings, and also to make sure that the project is properly monitored and keeps moving in a manner that is appropriate given the restoration of the bluff work that has to happen, the significant construction that needs to occur, to make sure that the end result is consistent and compatible to what you're seeing this evening. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Staff is recommending approval of this project, and I welcome your comments.
I have a question for you on your one staff recommendation regarding review of the permit drawing, the building drawings. Are you suggesting that is done prior to them being submitted for permit, after they're being submitted, during, once, twice, 3 times? What's your intent there?
I think we can work out a schedule with the petitioner to make sure that, you know, the process moves forward quickly.
Yeah.
If that means a pre-development meeting before permit
Yeah.
application, that's probably a good idea.
I'm suggesting that the intent of that condition is to make sure that the drawings that were approved are represented consistently in the construction drawings.
That's correct.
So I would suggest you let the staff, well, we'll get to that, I guess, but I understand the request. All right, how about questions from any of the commissioners for either the applicant or the staff? Discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, and maybe this is a question to Diana and or the staff. You know, well, first off, I want to say it's a tough thing to get involved in at this stage, and you did a great job with what I've seen here and what's in the packet. I think it'd be helpful to understand what scenarios you tossed around in your head in terms of the bulk and what you thought of and then said it's not doable. You know, the biggest concern I have when I was on the property, and I'm really putting myself in the, you know, the shoes of the neighbor to the north, is just the size of the garage. You know, it's so large and the bulk is so significant. I'm just wondering if you could comment on 2 things. One, just the whole house, how you thought of the bulk, what scenarios you considered, and how you came upon this as the optimal solution, at least from an aesthetic perspective and a feasibility perspective. And then 2, just how you thought about the garage, and is it dressing it up to be more kind of visually appealing and it just has to be that big? Or if there are other options that you considered, because I just think it's massive and totally out of character with the house as it is, and I just wanted to get your thoughts as you
Sure,
wrestle
well,
with this.
I can tell you that we came into the project with a building that was already basically under construction.
Yeah.
And the homeowner had invested quite a bit of money and materials rebuilding what was there, and also you know, putting the additions on. So what we were trying to do was work within the structure that was now put in place, and I believe the garage, there wasn't that much discussion on reducing it, because I think it was something that was, at least its footprint, which we did reduce in certain places, but I believe that because that was sort of given to them in the earlier petition, that the footprint, we were trying to reduce the footprint as much as we could to articulate the mass, but you know, it's a brand new foundation, brand new framing, so we basically would have to rip off the roof and do some jogging with the foundation, but we were trying to work within the structure that they had already spent a lot of time and effort to either build on the house or build the garage.
Okay.
So,
I did
short of
ask,
tearing down the whole house and starting over again, you know, it's like.
I'm
what-
very sympathetic to that. I don't want to come across as saying,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I did
Everything
ask
is
this
possible.
question, I think, at our last meeting, and I think if I understood the answer at the time, the bulk had more to do with the additional height of the house than the garage. In other words, you know, there's a lot of houses in Lake Forest that have garages of this size and even relatively larger compared to the principal residence. But the problem here is that because the house was essentially lifted up when it was reframed to put this new steel structure under each of the first and the second floor, the height of this building is taller than what was previously approved. And so that's Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that the primary reason why the bulk is increased?
That's exactly right. I think in this proposal that you're seeing today, the garage was actually reduced significantly from what it exists on the site, the as-built condition.
Right.
And I think that's the primary place where they removed building scale. The overage that is being requested can all be attributed to the attic space. That was a result of raising the structure to stabilize the floors, and that was really done because, or that method was chosen because replacement of the floors may have resulted in loss of the entire structure. The floors are really stabilizing that entire structure.
Just so I understand it a little bit more, so the increase over the 2007 approval is all from raising the attic. Wasn't the 2007, does the garage go into the bulk calculations?
I believe the garage is slightly over the permitted square footage for a garage,
Okay,
but
so
it's the same size garage as was approved back in 2007. The footprint, I should say.
Actually, the footprint's a little smaller.
I thought the 2007 it was a flat roof, 1-story or 1.5-story garage that was being proposed back then.
It was a hip roof, but neither in 2007 nor in this proposal was there second floor space that was counted. And I think that was the major change, or the change that's proposed. As built now, there's second floor square footage that's being considered part of the building scale calculation. And in order to eliminate some bulk in that area, the structure was lowered and the roof forms were changed to really minimize any second floor space.
I think the gambrel roof makes it look so much nicer.
Diana, can you go back to the shaded slide that shows where you trimmed off some of the bulk? And I just didn't see the garage really in play on that, so that's why I asked the question. There was another one that maybe, so it's the top, and then that's the shaded part.
Yeah, the pink area there, because we're changing the form of the roof, brings some of the bulk out there.
So there's a number of things to consider, and I'm not sure I have so much of a question about this as a comment. This is an interesting note from Michael Tracy. I actually was in his living room. This is the neighbor to the south, and got some feedback on him from this prior to, in its existing condition, actually. And I think the garage was his primary concern, and also the chimneys, which were being allowed to be constructed outside of the house, which are now going inside of the house on the south elevation, which I applaud. I mean, this is a quite large production here when we're all done. The good news is I think you've done a real nice job balancing, the overall composition, given the bones that you have to work with, and even changing a lot of the bones in terms of the garage. Also, the fact that this sits on Lake Michigan and has the backdrop of, a huge vista to kind of offset this large scale is a little bit helpful in my mind. This would probably have a much harder time being approved in a neighborhood full of smaller houses. So those are just factors that I appreciate. You show on the, I guess this is the south elevation. Can you go to the west elevation real quick? I guess it shows up on both elevations. There's I guess a deck. I think you call it a terrace. Would that not have a railing around it? Is there a railing missing from these drawings?
No, we were looking at the, when we were out at the site, we were looking at the site grading there, and we think it may be less than 30 inches.
Oh, good.
And we prefer to take, the original, well, they're not original. The railings that were there in the historic photos look like they were probably put in the 60s. Gavin, can you go to that?
That's why I asked the question there.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to do is visually get that, if we can avoid having those railings, if they're not required by code, it makes a lot more sense to have that open visually, so that way you can get more connection to the lake and the land around it, just because the house is set up fairly high.
And
So we're hoping that we'll be underneath that 30-inch requirement.
now, I'm pretty sure I don't have anything with respect to landscaping in this proposal. Can you address that real quickly?
That's because there is none as of yet. I think the Jacobowskis, we've been working so hard at trying to massage this house to get it into something that's workable,
Yeah.
that our next step would be landscaping.
Okay.
And I know that they were also working with the city for the civil engineering, and once that was sort of approved, then they were going to go to the next step, and I think they just needed sort of a break before they start tackling the next part of it.
So
But what we
Kath-
did know is that we were looking at the driveway configuration as one thing, because that relates to our garaging, and so obviously we would like to make sure that the landscaping also reflects the Georgian.
So Kathy, can you tell us how that process would work? Would they come back to us with land? I'm sorry, I keep asking the wrong person. Megan, sorry.
That's okay. So as one of the recommended conditions of approval, number 11, there are several of them, we are recommending that a detailed final landscape plan be brought back to the commission, showing the entire site, including driveway configuration and hardscape. But that really needs to be done, to include the restored bluff and to include the other site work and earthwork that needs to happen on the site, so that we know what plants can be planted where. But that is something that we're recommending be brought back to the commission for approval.
And that would include screening, any screening from, the north in terms of the garage and just...
Correct. I think it would be appropriate in this meeting, if you have comments on landscaping, to provide direction to the petitioner, if there are key areas where you want to look for screening, and then as the site work takes shape, then we can make sure that those comments are incorporated into the plan.
Yeah, I think the general comment is put yourself in the shoes of the person that lives, to the north, and would you want to see that garage and in all its glory from that vantage point, and what can you do aesthetically to shield them? That's as simple as that, I think.
And Megan, I see in the condition, the recommended condition, you're saying that landscape plan would be brought to us prior to a certificate of occupancy, but after a building permit, and I assume after construction of all of this stuff.
Are you concerned that that's not strong enough? Or?
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, because I agree. I mean, I kind of feel like the history of this house there's been good intentions, and then, so I think strengthening that is appropriate. I don't know what that means, but I like what you're thinking.
We tried to allow some flexibility in the timing, because the key piece is that the bluff restoration needs to get underway first.
Okay.
That permit is ready to be issued this week. That project is going to be extensive, and that work needs to be underway and be progressing satisfactorily in the eyes of the city engineer before we will even be able to issue a permit. And he really advised that we really need to see how this site begins to take shape. It would be premature to really try and do too much with the landscape plan, but certainly we could move it up from, we tried to, because we don't know exactly how the two pieces of the project are going to move forward, we're trying to be flexible.
Right.
We could certainly move that up and take from you specific areas that you want to be sure are screened.
The bluff restoration plan, does this need our approval before that begins?
The bluff restoration plan has been proceeding independently.
Okay.
We've been trying to keep the two working together, but the bluff restoration plan has gone through various iterations and is now, I just checked with the city engineer today, and that permit is now ready to be issued.
Okay, so that's going to proceed no matter what we do
Correct.
here tonight?
Correct.
And is there some estimate as to when it's going to be far enough along that they're going to be able to proceed with building on the structure?
At this point, the city engineer really needs to see how the project takes shape. It is a very, very extensive project. And we know that the petitioners want to get started on the house as soon as possible, but we're going to have to manage competing construction traffic, and the drainage on the property has been properly reestablished, and that will be monitored by the engineering staff throughout the bluff reconstruction process. So we don't know exactly how all of this is going to fit together. We're trying to get the various approvals in place so that we are ready to move this forward. We do know from the neighbors that there is interest in getting this site cleaned up and getting this work completed.
Yeah. Well, my only thought about that is if they aren't going to be able to proceed for a month or more, then maybe a landscape plan could come back to us before we have final approval, you know, just if there's some concern about that. I don't want to hold up the petitioner at all. I think this is gone. This project has, you know, been on hold, and the plans that you have, you know, I think are wonderful. The petitioner obviously listened closely to the commission when they were here last time, and so, you know, I don't want to hold anything up, but I understand the other commissioners' concerns about landscaping.
We do have an opportunity for public comment too. If there's any other questions, let's take those, and then let's do the public, and then we can deliberate questions.
I do have one more question.
Sure.
Just in regard to the design. I just wonder what you were thinking, and maybe this wasn't your plan, but the change of the front entry. Why that was changed from the original 60s photo to the design that we see now. Can you tell me a little bit about your thought process and changing from a single to a double door and eliminating the two windows?
Mm-hmm. Well, it relates to, unfortunately, I don't have the earlier plans, but this house went through an evolution of additions and renovations around the turn of the last century, and the entry was sort of a, it was a result of kind of a, I guess I'd say jockeying in the plan or something. And so what we were trying to do was not take those, what I would say, resultant designs from this kind of odd mixture of, yeah, oh, this one, yeah. But it's hard to explain because I don't, like I said, I don't have the plans. But, you know, they moved a house from another location, and then they added on this piece that you see on the front.
Okay.
And the floor plan, this portico relates to that original floor plan and how they tried to sort of cobbled two buildings together.
Right.
And so we really didn't feel as though this was that we wanted to have a reflection of this kind of mixtures of designs, that we wanted to be more appropriate to the layout of the house now.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that's really clear, but
this was a previous, where she's referring to a previous photograph of the house prior to the construction starting, and the entrance in that photograph is 3 bays wide with a single entry door and a number of smaller windows. You can kind of get it from the photo of the in-process.
That one.
Yeah, there you go. That's actually the photo, I think.
That is.
But in the earlier floor plan, when that one was designed, the house actually, the foyer was faced the opposite direction to the south, and it went in the north-south direction. And then later, what happened was the house then later became the east-west direction. So there was this kind of a mixture of the two, the 1890s plan and then the 1907 plan, and when they kind of melded them together, they got this kind of odd configuration. So we felt as though it didn't make any sense for the floor plan that's occurring today. So.
I'm a little concerned about the windows around the doors. I can see on the two that the bottoms have side panels, and that looks great, but I think that the treatment might be just a little ordinary. I don't know how else to describe it. I would love to see some beautiful interest above the doors, with just some beautiful detailing.
Can you put the proposed
There are transom lights above those doors.
I see them, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to be overly embellished, but certainly we can look at it.
Maybe a slightly smaller window. The panes seem a bit large in proportion.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
it's just something to think about.
Yeah.
I looked at it and I immediately thought new construction when I saw it.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, we appreciate your input, so we'll look at that more. Certainly, this is a preliminary design, and we have to now take this preliminary design and do more detailing and study each thing more thoroughly, you know, each portion of the design, so
It is a beautiful design, I love it.
appreciate your.
Thank you.
Diana, I'm sorry, I'm not sure that this isn't adequately shown in here, but if you'll humor me, and just in terms of the materials themselves, the windows, you know, there was a lot of emphasis, I think, on the original approval, trying to maintain the historic nature of the old house, and a lot of that's now gone away. Can you tell us just a little bit about the materials that you're proposing here? You know, just walk us through those.
Sure, and we've had discussions on that. There's a brick base on the wall at the bottom, and we wanted to, where the brick may be deteriorated or missing, we wanted to make sure that we reinstated that brick. And then above that, the house was a shingle-style house, so we were going to put shingles back on it. And then on the roof, we were planning on having a wood shingle roof as well. The windows, we were planning on having true divided light wood painted. That's the basic stuff. Wood trim, copper gutters and downspouts. Brick chimneys with brick detailing, and we were planning on doing that per the historic photos.
Right.
So.
I asked you a loaded question I knew the answer to, but in terms of the cornice and the detailing of the balustrade above I mean, basically you're taking cues from the existing house and you're rebuilding to those.
As much as we can, yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, the cornice, there's some cornice that's left on the house, and there are also, the Jakubowskis have catalog pieces from the original house that weren't too deteriorated, so we were planning on replicating those where we could.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I just have a question. You know, assuming that we move forward with this tonight and the bluff gets going, I mean, are you talking to the general contractor about just the aggregate timeline and the project plan and just when, you know, we get spring in June or July and we can start work? But I mean, I'm just curious if there's an overall plan to kind of get it going, just based on, I know some of the things that you've dealt with, but is that fully baked, half baked? Is it in process?
I'm laughing only because the Jakubowskis would like to start like tomorrow if they could. Yeah. So the ball's really in our court to get the construction drawings done, and there's a big leap between, we still have to do a structural analysis of the entire structure that's there and make a baseline for that, and then take the structure that's there, because a lot of it's new structure that they had to insert, but and modify that to work with the building forms. So it's the ball's in our court.
So, you know,
we have to get the drawings done. But the Jakubowskis
just to
are
step
talking
back,
about.
I mean, to take a big picture view, do you feel like the pieces are in place and the people and the right people are in place to execute smoothly once this gets started?
Well, we have had discussions with the Jakubowskis that they need to be getting their project team in place with, and so I know that they're talking to general contractors, they're talking to interior designers. We haven't really discussed the landscape yet.
Yeah.
I was hoping that we would be able to get the city engineering, because we'd like to be involved in the landscape design. As architects, we'd like to be involved working with the landscape architects.
Yeah.
So I would say that it's coming together, but it's not all complete.
Is that going to be part of the subcommittee responsibility, Megan, to kind of accelerate or work to make sure that the right decisions are being made and people are getting pulled in with the right expertise to get this going? Or can you just help me out with the subcommittee and what it's going to
Sure.
do?
I definitely think it's important for this petition for us to have a pre-permit application meeting with the contractor, with the architect, with the owner, and really make sure that everyone is on the same page and the expectations are laid out. We've also recommended that monthly schedules be prepared to coordinate with the city engineer and make sure that construction is occurring in a timely fashion, and that there aren't conflicts of construction activity, as Kathy was discussing earlier. So I do think there are mechanisms laid out in the conditions of approval to help kind of bring everyone together and make sure that things are moving forward smoothly.
And is the subcommittee members going to be the same that kind of did the sidebar to get to this
I think we can
point?
decide who should be the subcommittee. The only thing I would caution on, and this is not a question for the applicant, but, the whole subcommittee process, I think, is, works well when there's kind of a bunch of moving pieces that need to be talked about, need to be weighed, that then the commission comes back and has the benefit of acting upon. I think everything we're talking about so far is stuff that the staff should be capable of doing. Means and methods, schedules with a contractor, do the plans comply with the permit that's been approved? If a subcommittee has to be established to provide that kind of thing, then we need different staff, and I think we have great staff. I think I think in this case, the recommendation was included in the staff recommendation only because we had such a departure last time from the intent of the approval, and I appreciate that they're being cautious on that, and I'm willing to consider humoring you that, but I'm not overly big fan of subcommittee upon subcommittee, because I think the whole basis of this is so we can all sit up here together and talk about it, and if we need a meeting, we have a meeting every month.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm not questioning the staff. I just kind of feel like this project's a bit unique, right? I mean,
They all are.
right, it's a unique project, right? And I'm just wondering if, we feel good about the execution, that's all.
Well, I think it's a complicated execution, and I think you're asking good questions, and I think we're putting Diana probably in a tricky spot because, I guess, what the real question is what should the neighbors expect from the standpoint, and the city from the standpoint of a timeline? If something happens here tonight, will this be up and running this summer? Will it be done in a year? What's the general expectation? And, maybe we can get some clarity on that as we go, but I think that's a good question. It's a big project, though, so, I'm sure it'll take every bit of a year to pull this off, would you not guess? Yeah.
Well, the first step is to get the architectural drawings completed. and
Run for
our hope
office.
is that we'll have this under construction by the summer.
Good for you.
Yeah.
So.
All right, any other questions?
And then, of course, there's the coordination with the bluff and
Yeah.
permitting
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
contractor bidding, and so my guess, we're hoping to be in construction this summer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
This is an opportunity for any other public comment, if we have any of that. Now's the time, so please come on up and introduce yourself and let us know what you have to say.
Hi, my name's Alice Moulton Ely, and I live at 420 East Woodland Road in Lake Forest, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation. This design is such an improvement over last fall's. It's beautiful, and the architect's done some real magic here. It's just wonderful. I have two questions. Will shutters be installed in the house? Because they really do add a lot when you see the original structure. And number two, I'm not clear on what the current bulk overage is, because in the petition it says that the original house was significantly over the maximum bulk, and it says right now the current design is 11% over the original bulk. So what is the overage, is my question.
Good question. I think I'll direct the first question to Diana on the shutters, and then we'll let let Megan talk about the exact bulk difference. Thanks, Diana.
We didn't show shutters because we're not really sure what we might be including for shutters there. So we like the proportions without it, but we haven't gotten into a complete discussion with the Jakubowskis to decide. So can't answer that. I guess that's where it might come into into play for the final review before permit, I guess.
Well, I think you've submitted it without shutters, so you're going to get a review without shutters.
Well, we liked it without shutters, but...
Yeah, I think that's the answer to the question then. Our intention would probably not be to impose those on you unless somebody here wants to do that.
The issue came with the 3 windows over the center.
Yeah.
And when you start putting shutters across there, it becomes almost, many shutters in a row. So
Can you just talk to us about the character of the house with and without shutters for the period and the style of the house, and, you know, whether that's something that would be consistent one way or the other, or inconsistent one way or the other? Just, you know, educate us, help us out. I mean, we're
Yeah.
looking at a picture of a really nice looking house here with
I would say that
shutters.
half of the homes have shutters, half of them don't.
Yeah.
This one, of course, did
Yeah.
have shutters, and the shutters were always used for protection. And they, you know, when you shut them, they were protecting against the elements. So certainly we could look at shutters if that was something that you wanted us to do.
You know, it strikes me, and it's a comment, I know you've been working with a limited set of resources on a very large project, and, you know, we don't have color drawings here, for example. We don't have a landscape plan. And yet, I appreciate the reason for that is that we're trying to determine whether, from a rational point of view, there's a way to get forward on this project. Maybe that would be something that would be worth a second look, and there may be some other things like that that might be worth a second look at the same time that we look at the landscaping. You know, if we do move forward with this, we might develop a little bit of a laundry list of some things that we want a little more definition on. So how about the, thanks, Dana, how about the bulk? Could you reinforce the question, the position on that?
Certainly.
It's a good one.
As with many homes in the historic district, this home, in its original state, was significantly over the square footage permitted on the lot, and that means it was 51% over the square footage permitted on the lot. The home that you're seeing now increases that by 11%, so bringing you to 62% over.
And the lot is measured to the top of the bluff. Is that more or less the case?
The way the ordinance is written is to include 100% of the tableland and 50% of the non-tableland.
So 50% of the bluff is included for conversation
For the purposes
purposes.
of calculating
okay,
building
thank you.
scale. Correct.
Other public comments, questions? I see none. So now's the time for deliberation.
I want to thank you. I just think your plan is beautiful, and you've spent so much time doing the research on the house from 1894 to the present. In 1951, I went to that house to a beautiful dance, and they had shutters. So you might, and in the picture you have for the 1960s, it had shutters, so you might think about that. But I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible, and I'm so glad you got rid of the railing on the roof. I couldn't bear that. So I think, and I, having been on this commission about to go off in the past 6 years, the staff, I know, will not let you do anything that's not just right, and the landscaping, I'm sure, will be gorgeous, so I'm not concerned about that. I just know that you'll do the best job you possibly can, and I know you will, too. Thank you.
Yeah, I concur with that assessment. I think that it's a nice-looking product that we are looking at today, and I'm thrilled to be looking at this versus where we were 2 or 3 months ago. So that's a great improvement. I would like to add a couple things to the wish list, if you will, in terms of things that'll come back to us when we see the landscape plan, or maybe before, and I think we should talk a little bit amongst ourselves about the timing for that. But I think the paving for the terraces, we'd like to know about what that's going to be. I think we want to understand the specific railing designs for the upper balustrades, and whether or not railings get installed on the terraces. If that's a code requirement, then we want to see what those would look like. Also, the question of shutters or no shutters. What's the recommendation, or what's the, just let's revisit that. Anything else that you folks that we think I think that covers it pretty well.
That's
the
good.
landscaping plan, I think, will include lighting and those kinds of things. So what about the timing? I mean, I was kind of thinking that if we saw that in conjunction with the permit request, I don't think that this house will be, a permit will be processed for this for a number of months, because there's a lot of work to do to develop the permit drawings to do this. It's perhaps the right time to also see that stuff, and then we know when it's released for building permit. but that also gives the owner the benefit of knowing that they have an approval to proceed with the bluff work while they're continuing to design it. What do you have any comments on that, Bill? Is it?
No, all those things sound reasonable. My only question is, do we approve the petition and add these as conditions to return?
Right.
So they can start with their project. I don't think those conditions would prevent this project from going forward at all.
Right.
And again, because of the timing for the permitting and stuff, I think they could come back to us. So if, that wouldn't be a problem putting those in as a condition, would it?
No, and
Okay.
it sounds like the commission is comfortable with the massing and comfortable with the bulk, and that the issues that you're discussing are more detail level.
It's correct for me, yeah.
I can't speak
So
for them.
we can add a condition as part of your motion to review the various items that you outlined
Okay.
and bring them back to the commission.
What's that?
Shall I make a vote?
Unless there's any other questions or comments, I would move for a motion.
I will make one. I'd like to grant a certificate of appropriateness recognizing the demolition of the original structure, approving the replacement structure as now proposed, and granting a building scale variance of 11% over the original house subject to the following conditions of approval. And there were 14, and then you've added shutters and you've added a few other things. So including those things you've added, that would be my motion.
I'd second that.
Motion is made by Commissioner McTier, seconded by Commissioner Ransom. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that one passes. Congratulations. Good luck with that. We look forward to some progress. So we did the consent agenda?
Yeah, we're at number 5 now.
Okay,
so
great.
we did the consent agenda. Approved the minutes and stuff.
Thank you. Appreciate your covering for me there.
Not a problem. They didn't spend plenty of time.
Yeah. Sorry? All right, our next event is a request for certificate of appropriateness to allow construction of addition and a building scale variance for the residents at 319 Woodland Road. And I'll ask the commissioners if there's any one that has a ex parte conflict on this. And I see none for that. Megan, is Guy out for the evening, or is he?
He's sick.
He's sick, okay,
Yes.
thank you. Just wanted to make sure he wasn't cooling his heels downstairs.
Yeah, Rick Cousine in his hour.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chairman Harris.
Good evening.
Commissioners.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming tonight to listen to this petition. I'm here tonight to ask for a certificate of appropriateness for 2 additions to 319 East Woodland. Chris and Mary Bowder are the homeowners, and they've owned this home for several years, and I'm very thankful they called me back to work on this project again. We did a lot of work back in 2003 on this home, did extensive exterior renovation to the home. We re-sided the home with new cedar shingles that had aluminum siding on it at that point, and we put new windows. They were replacement windows at the time with no divisions in them, and we replaced the windows with true divided light double hungs, and we put shutters on that weren't there before. It had actually through the wall unit air conditioners in each room, actually not through the window, but through the wall, so we got rid of those, put central air in, put a new roof on, and the entry portico is new, and the garage roof is new, and the landscaping is new, so they made a lot of great improvements to the home. And they called me back to continue that tradition of improving the home. So we're proposing to add a master bathroom addition on the back of the home and also a mudroom addition on the side of the home. And I'll start out with showing you pictures of the neighborhood. This is a view of the home from Woodland. You can see the front, it's the side entry home. The addition is on the back of the, get my pointer out so I can show you. It's on the back of the wing that's off to the east. So the addition is behind this wing of the home. This is the back view of the home. And you can see where there's an existing 1-story family room addition. So we're taking that footprint, those walls, keeping that and adding a room above that, and that's the master bathroom. It's right off of the master bedroom. Right now, there's a shared bath, so this is going to be greatly improve the livability of this older home. Here you can see some views of the yard. This is a view of the rear. You can see just a glimpse of the corner of the existing home. That's the back southwest corner. So it's got a very deep backyard. This is a view to the east. There's stockade fence on both sides of the home, and that adds very nice screening for the property. Here are some more views. Here's another view of the front. This gives you a better indication of the location of the mudroom addition. It's directly behind the garage here, so about 20 feet back from that wall. Here's a view from the street looking at where the addition might be, behind this fence, kind of in line with that tree. So you'd see some of the shingles of the roof of that small addition. Here are streetscapes. This is the view looking down to the east on Woodland Road. This is across the street to the north. So many of the homes are stockade fence screened and mature landscaped. So it fits really well with the neighborhood. Here we have a detailed view of where the mudroom addition is going to be. And right now there's a recessed entry, and there's a staircase right beyond this window. And then the kitchen is off to the right of this door. So we're going to add a 4-foot bump out here, just from this post to the garage corner, 4 feet to the west. And that's going to be a fairly minimal mudroom. It's basically 7 feet by 9 feet. So we kept it as tight as we could to not to encroach too much on the side yard there. So we'll go to the drawings and see what it's going to look like. This is a plan view on the site. So we see the where the master bathroom addition is on the same footprint of the family room, and then there's the mudroom addition right there. So this portion is what's currently an open porch, and so we're going to enclose that, and then there's the slight bump out. Here we have a view of the mudroom, although you won't really see this from any view since there's a fence basically 8 feet away from this garage wall here. So this is the bump out. It's going to continue the roof lines that exist already. So there is a shed roof above the garage here, a shed roof above the kitchen here. So we're going to continue that and blend it in with the existing shed roof. And this wall will project out 2 feet from that wall. We have a door to get access into the mudroom. It's important that we get access from the backyard. It's essentially for the children, the cows from outside, and the dogs. So it'll be very functional. And here we have a view of the east elevation. You can see the existing family room here, and then here's the addition of the master bath. So all the materials will match exactly the existing material. The eave lines also match up with the existing eave lines of the home. The dormer configurations match the existing. So I think the rhythm and repetition that's already established on the home is definitely consistent with this addition. One thing it doesn't show right now, we did put that portico above the entry back in 2003, but it gives you an idea of the overall massing of the home. And I think it's very sensitive to the existing architecture. Here's a view of the back of the home. You can see we've pochade the shingles on the addition, and this is where the master bathroom is. So again, all the materials match. So I think it's very sensitive to existing architecture. You get a peek of the mudroom addition here. It's 4 feet in this direction. There's the garage wall there. So the materials are copper gutters, downspouts, cedar shingle roof, divided light windows, double hung up above. The family room below, those are existing to remain, so no change there. The roof slopes match existing. Shingle colors will all match. So I think it'll blend in very nicely with what's occurring right now. Plans, I think typically generally don't review those, but I'll just flash those on the screen. There's a section of the mudroom. And roof plan. You can see where the dormers are. So I'm going to go back to, I know there's one element that I wanted to point out on the photographs of the home. See if I can find them. So back to this photo, just to show where the addition is going to be above the family room there. So the roof lines are going to match. There are right now 2 dormers there, and that was our consideration for the addition, basically replacing those 2 dormers on the back of the addition. So I think those work well with the plan. We'd like to keep the 2 dormers on the back. We have 1 dormer on the side. So we're hoping that that's going to be consistent with the repetition of the dormer spacing on the back of the home. So I think, you know, it meets all the criteria of the preservation guidelines. And there is a slight bulk overage that we're asking for. 3.9% goes on the bulk. But we've, I think, kept these additions to a real minimum, particularly mudroom, and you know, with these eave lines being low, being on the rear of the home, I think it really doesn't impact the streetscape much at all. So with the placement of these, I think it really helps to mitigate that bulk overage. Mm-hmm. So I'm hoping that, you know, you approve our petition tonight, and we could continue to, you know, make this home very livable for the Bowders. Thanks.
Great. Megan, do you have a staff report for us?
Thank you, Chairman Peretz. This project has 2 additions. It's the second floor addition over an existing first floor space to the rear, and the small infill addition to the side for the mudroom. Just for your information, the mudroom addition does require a side yard setback variance, and the Zoning Board of Appeals will review that request tomorrow at their March hearing. In general, this project is really typical of projects that the Commission reviews, to take an existing historic house and really expand it in a way to make the interior spaces more desirable for the growing family. And I think given the modest footprint increase and the fact that the additions aren't visible from the street, the criteria for a building scale variance in this case are met. The petitioner did talk through some alternatives with staff to minimize the overage, and I think the end results really did minimize the spaces that they're requesting, and staff supports the building scale variance. There are findings listed in your staff report for that. There was one comment in the staff report about the architecture with respect to the dormers on the rear. I think the intent was to mimic the existing rhythm that exists on the house and to bring those 2 dormers to the south. And at this point, I just ask that the Commission consider that area and look at the proportions of those dormers on the roof form and provide comment and direction to the petitioner as they see fit. I think that's pretty much it for this one. It's a pretty simple petition. We are recommending approval with the conditions listed in the staff report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great.
So Megan, do you think the dormers were just too big, or what was your I mean, the scale wasn't, as they were part of the house and they were congruent to the other dormers, you thought as this was built up it didn't fit, or you think there's just one, or was it a leading kind of question? Or
I think in this case, we didn't list it as necessarily a condition of approval, just something for the Commission to look at. It's slightly incongruent with the proportions of the other roof forms and the spacing of the dormers on the other roof forms. So just something to bring to your attention, and it is on the back of the house, so I think you know, the Commission can have a good discussion about that.
did you look at other designs, or did you just think that this, just based on the 2 that were there and just pushing them out a little bit, it was kind of the same look and feel from the rear? Was that?
It started out with the planned layout, and it was working well to have 2 dormers with the plan. And then we decided to look at it on the outside, obviously, and make sure that it fits on the outside as well. And we felt comfortable, you know, since there are 2 dormers essentially in that same width of roof line, that it would work with the addition. So, you know, you do look at some adjacent elements for instance, there's a bump out to the west with a single dormer on that roof form. So if you look at that as a precedent for our addition, yes, you'd say, okay, one is more appropriate. But on the other hand, since there are 2 dormers on the existing home, and we're just basically pulling those forward and making them work with the bathroom addition, I think it's very successful that way. And there is a real attempt here just to bring as much light into the home too, and that's one thing that's typically lacking in these older homes, and so they felt a bright bathroom would be a real plus, especially with the southern exposure. So it seems like it'd be really improvement for their living. So we thought that was a pretty good way to go.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. I mean, I think that the composition reads is a larger mass from the backyard, if you will, and you know, if you were just building this small chunk with 2 windows, it might be a little odd looking, but in relationship to the whole width of the house, I think this carries it off okay.
It's fine.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me. Go ahead.
I think I understood you to say that when you have these new shingles on the side of the house, that they will be painted the same color as the house, so they won't weathered to look different.
The shingles right now are stained, and so it's going to be a pretty easy way to match. They haven't really weathered since they're not natural. They're stained a color, so I feel pretty good about
They'll be gray.
matching it. Right.
So it'll all be the same.
Right.
Good.
And John, I got a question for you on the mudroom. Are there any risks to those trees on the west? I was just, those are beautiful, and I don't know, I kind of think they add a lot of character, and just curious if you thought of.
Right. I think we are going to do the root pruning. We believe they're hardy trees. They are Siberian elms, which aren't your typical elm. Depends from what I understand. They're somewhat of an invasive species. Relatively fast growing, and that's why they were planted back in the 60s. So our intent is to keep the trees. I think through pruning, I think we're not too close to really jeopardize them, but certainly, if that becomes the issue, that the replacement would be in the cards. But we're hoping that it's going to well work out and we'll be able to keep them.
I just have a question. The second-story addition, it steps back from the first story.
And one little portion it does. I'll point that out.
And that was to keep it continuous with the existing wall?
Correct.
Or,
well,
which, and then the dormers lose the symmetry to the doors and windows below it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a tricky little detail here. I'm just going to go over the thinking on this little step back right here. So that's the existing wall of the family room. But this wall terminates at that wall. So it's a length of about 5 feet of wall from here. Maybe a plan would be a better way to show that. So this is not a very long wall. It's not as long as this wall, for instance. So I'll show you in plan. So this little roof form is just 5 feet deep. So we decided not to exactly line up the addition with that wall because it does help our symmetry of the 2 dormers. If we pull this wall out, now we'd have more wall surface here than on this side and throw off the balance of those 2 dormers. So we felt it was a more successful composition to do it this way. And since there is precedent for this roof form on the garage and the kitchen, we felt that it matched existing conditions. So it did a lot of different things for us, and it was just a subtle thing, but I think it works.
Go ahead.
This house was built in 1920, but I didn't see who the architect was.
I can't find it in the records. I've looked in the files and I haven't found anything.
Thank you.
So.
It's got kind of a gingerbread house feel to it, to me, and it's kind of a...
There's some nice detail on it.
Yeah, I mean, interesting layout and kind of cobbled together. But yeah, that's nice. I like it.
Any other questions for the petitioner? I think we're good. How about public comments? This is an opportunity for the public, if you have any. And I see none, so it's time for deliberation. Yeah, I think it's a good-looking plan. It's a beautiful house, and I think one of the nice attributes of this house is that it's got some variable massing as you go around the house, and so I like the fact that you've incorporated that into this addition. It's a natural outcome of, the space requirement, and if you move that wall, it would just make the house bigger, which I don't think would be our goal. The mass on this lot, marginal mass increase, doesn't seem out of character for us. I don't think doesn't strike me as being problematic. And if they meet the requirements for the variance, I will let those folks act on that, but I don't see an architectural reason why that's a problem. I think it's nicely done. Anybody else?
I think it's perfect. No, it's fine.
Yeah, I like it.
Good comments.
Good. I'll ask for a motion.
Okay.
Your motion.
I'd like to
Commissioner.
recommend that we grant a certificate of appropriateness for the proposed project, subject to the conditions 1, 2, 3, and 4 as given in our packet.
Seconded.
So moved by Commissioner McTier and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that one passes as well. Preshlik.
Pressure.
I have trouble with the pronunciation.
It's two syllables, presh and lack.
Thank you.
Put them together, it wreaks havoc somehow.
No one can get my name right, so I beat up everybody else's. All right, thank you very much. We have another petition. This is a request for certificate of appropriateness to allow construction of a wall and driveway gates along the front of a property at 890 North Sheridan Road. And I'll ask the commissioners if we have any ex parte conflict on this one. And I see none, so I'll let the petitioner make their presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Good evening.
Hi.
I appreciate the opportunity to address the Historic Commission this evening. My name is Tim Schneider. My wife and I, Shelley, have a home at 890 North Sheridan Road in Lake Forest. In 2009, this commission approved an addition and alteration to our home. Construction on the garage is nearly complete. Construction on the driveway, which was also approved, will begin this spring along with our landscape plan. Tonight, we seek a certificate of appropriateness for construction of a wall along the front of our property and construction of entrance pillars and driveway gates. This evening, I have my landscape contractor, Jerry Epping, with me to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Okay.
As you can see on the overhead, profile of the fence, and what it is, it's a solid masonry. A Lannon stone is the type of stone we're using, with solid wood gates, and that runs the length of the property, which borders Sheridan Road. It is 3 foot back from the property line, and the fence does arc somewhat on the north end. I'll just point that out with a pencil here. There are some trees along, and if you can see, fence is this curved area here to stay out of as much of the root zone as we can. There's some existing oaks in that area. I have another picture of a property right across the road that has an existing fence there, so trying to stay somewhat consistent. That has I think it's a stucco type of fence that way. It has some ornamental iron, which ornamental iron on our property over here doesn't really accent it. We tried to use the wood gates, being that there are some wood panels on the house, so we're trying to emulate that a little bit or complement that with the wood and also the paint coloring. I have an overhead on the house, or the, here, I'll set up an overhead for the house there. You can see the wood panels. I guess it's a little tough to see, but to the right and left of the front door, and those wood panels are going to be on the garage also when the garage is completed. This would be the north view of the property immediately to the north of their property, and that has a wood picket fence on that property.
And so are you planning to have a, I guess, a fence on the north and south of the property and behind it, or is this?
No,
this is just
there's
the front?
already an existing fence on
Yeah.
the north side. The south property line, we're just going to put a little bit of vegetation.
Okay.
These would be the gates that would complement the architecture. And the lower picture is the type of stone that we'd be using. It's a Lannon stone product.
Yeah.
Did you consider any other materials besides Lannon stone?
It seems like the Lannon stone complements the landscape that we have in place, which we have landscape cobbles. I'll put up the original. Have a landscape cobbled entry and then a border around the asphalt drive with a carriageway out of landscape cobbles. And then in the backyard, they were going to put up a landscape seat wall out of the same type of product. So keeping some continuity through the project.
Yeah. So if I was walking past the fence and I looked to the, to the west, I mean, or if I was driving by, what would I see in terms of the house? Does it kind of go halfway to the front door, or is it?
It's a ranch-style house, but the road is relatively close, and if you're sitting in your car, your height, your head view is probably, around 5 foot.
Yeah.
You'll be looking basically right. Your head view will be over the fence, and you should get a pretty good view of the house also.
Yeah.
Because it is a ranch-style home with, I think it's a gable roof on it.
And so you kind of came up to 4 feet just based on that kind of look and feel, because sometimes you have a, and I'm not an expert on this, but you have a feel that there's this huge gate and there's this big fence and it doesn't quite fit with the size of the house, and
that's why if you look
so
at
I'm sure you kind of went through all that to just say, hey, you know what, this is going to be a cool little place. We're going to have a dog. We want to, keep it in, and we want to drive up to it and see it. So I was kind of curious, even, to the homeowners, what your vision of the fence is, like its purpose and kind of how you thought about it.
That did enter our thought process. If you can look at the elevations of the pillars next to the gates to help support the gates, and the way they do undulate, taper down, and then even the center of the wall is pretty much about center of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we did look at the proportions on that.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a valid comment. There's a quite massive front wall and set of gates for, what's quite modest house. And, if you use the reference point across the street, if you want to just show that across the street photo again real quick for us.
The Tudor with the stucco.
Yeah, please, if you've got it. This is a whole different scale of house and a whole different, not much of a different scale of fence. So, so appreciate that there's some attempt to echo that fence from across the street, but I'm not sure. I'm a little concerned about the scale with the house.
If I might just
sure,
comment about
please.
that.
Yeah.
I was very concerned about that when discussing that with my wife. That fence across the street is significantly higher than the 4 feet that the fence. We didn't want to overpower our house with a massive, this is a 3,500 square foot ranch house on Sheridan Road, and we did not want to overpower the house with this huge entrance.
Actually, it's not the 4-foot fence height that bothers me so much as when you get to 7 feet at these two gates spaced, relatively closely together, 63 feet apart. That would be similar in scale to those entry gates. I believe those are probably a little bit taller, but I don't think they're much different, are they?
I would say that the top of the point on those gates is over where the brickwork is probably over 8 feet there.
Yeah. So That might be worth an investigation. I'd love to see the elevation of the house laid in with the elevation of the fence. It would be a telling kind of thing. Also, the pilasters for the gates themselves read pretty massively too. I think there's probably some subtle things. Actually, I'm not sure that that's what's drawn in plan, is it? If you look at the elevation around the two gates, I think you're showing a pilaster that's, to my eye, almost 3 feet wide, and in plan, it looks like it's more like about 1 foot wide.
I think when they put that in the CAD program, it got out of scale, because those are only 2.5 foot.
So the piers on either side of the driveway would be 2.5 feet wide?
2.5 foot at the max.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, I had the same reaction.
And the gates, would they be dark color or light color? Would they match the dark color of the wood on the house? Is that what the idea was?
I think the wood on the house is more of a taupe.
Taupe?
Yeah, it is.
So it would match, that's the idea, is that would match that?
Have you ever considered maybe having a 3-foot wall instead of a 4-foot wall, and then having your pillars just that much smaller in relationship?
Well, what part of that is just the overall balance we looked at, and then by the time you add a certain amount of shrubbery, and then just for the overall safety type of thing we looked at too, because there are some young individuals at that property.
Can you just walk us through the landscaping a little bit to understand what the relative height of the plantings would be against the fence, but particularly on the roadside, so we have an understanding of how much of that fence might be covered with vegetation, or you have quite extensive, or at least the drawing looks like there's quite a bit of plantings there, and that might...
If you look at the south entrance,
Please.
that would be boxwood, and those will end up being about 3.5 foot tall at maturity.
So that's at the pier, but how about the rest of it? Just like if you walk us from north to south along the fence, I mean, how high is this?
The next plant is our knockout roses, which end up being about 3 foot tall. And if you're, the majority of your stonework right in through there is about 4, but it arcs up to about 6 where it intersects the pillar.
So
After that, there was some arborvitae, some whole strip arborvitae that in the long term, they'll probably be kept somewhere maybe around 6 foot. So you'll have an area that raises up above the stone fence. Then you come back to the knockout roses again, and then you come back to the boxwood, and then the boxwood return again on the north side. Then you have a serviceberry back in the corner there with some astilbe, which is a perennial around it, and then some hydrangea. And then on the north side, you end up with a viburnum with some weigelia down around the base. And the weigelia end up getting about 3.5 foot tall. Your viburnum back in the corner usually gets, that probably gets to be about 6. So you have some undulating height through your landscape.
I've personally killed so many bushes that...
I'm sorry?
I've personally killed so many bushes that I'm just more concerned about the fence than the landscaping.
I'm not...
Bushes come and go.
See, I don't have much of a problem with the wall in that it's going to be softened by landscaping. We can put in whatever landscaping we want in there, and there's not going to... The entrance, though, at a height of 6, looks like, what, 6 feet and 6/10.
Well, one thing we could maybe do on that entrance, if you look where the wall intersects the pillar, we could maybe take that radius down a little bit, and that would not really hurt the design, and it'd still complement the pillar.
I'm curious what the staff report is, what the staff...
Yeah, let's go ahead and thank you for the presentation. It's a good point.
Has to say about it also.
We kind of skipped our procedure. We have a tendency to get a little excited.
I skipped when introducing them this evening, so they're being abused on all that.
Megan, why don't you give us a staff report?
Why don't I?
We're not going to deliberate now?
Well, just listening to some of the comments that the commission has already I think staff shares some of those concerns. We have express those concerns to the petitioner. The wall has actually come down in height as a result of some of those conversations. I think just because some of the commissioners are new to reviewing landscape walls, it's appropriate to consider the height as it relates not only to the streetscape but to the scale of the structure, which I think you've already touched on. The color and texture of the materials as it relates to the house and also as it relates to other properties. And the landscaping is something that the commission can comment on and provide direction. I think in this case, because of the massiveness of the wall in some locations, after we looked at this closer, one of the conditions of approval is to require 50% year-round landscape of the wall so that there is assurance that that wall will be softened throughout the year and not just in the summer months when the shrubs are in bloom. So with that, I would look forward to your discussion and answer any questions that you have.
I'm trying to think in Lake Forest, for a house of this scale, where they have something that's this massive, sort of, to me, it looks massive for the kind of house that it is. Do we, is it appropriate? I know appropriate, my husband always says appropriate, it's not a good word, but.
Well, that's why they're here.
I think, yeah, that's why this is before the commission for the, because it is in the historic district. It's not a historic house per se, but it is in the proximity of historic structures, and it is appropriate to discuss the scale and the relationship.
Is a wall appropriate to have? I mean,
I'm sorry.
No.
I was going. Do the pillars need to be this big to support these gates? Have you looked at like less massive gates, smaller pillars to support?
If you're going to go with a wood type of gate, especially that design, you need that height of a gate in order to support it as you go across, because they're a swinging gate and you need about the 8 foot, so you need a certain amount where it attaches to the pillar, just almost like a truss in a roof. It's all webbed together.
Yeah.
So that was one of the reasons we came up with the height of the pillar as it is to support the gate. And not so much supporting the gate, but the gate has to support itself in its construction.
Yeah. Yeah, I just have a comment. I mean, I think the bottom half of this picture is, it makes me feel a lot better, right? Because it's three-dimensional. I mean, obviously it's just two-dimensional in terms of down, but it gives you a bird's eye view of the bend of the fence just north of the north driveway, and it puts the pillars in a smaller context. But I think what we're reacting to is the top part is two-dimensional, and it shows this wall with pillars that may have gotten exaggerated based on the CAD system and no house to put it in proportion. And so I feel like if the house was there and the pillars were congruent to the size of the pillars in the lower half of this diagram, and it was, it was actually what you would see if one standing in a car or on the sidewalk, that it'd be easier to, I think, feel good about it, or 100% good about it.
Megan, there was a rendering that was drafted for that. I don't know if that's, I did not have a copy of that rendering.
I think that's exactly the problem I'm having with it.
I think I would like, from just when I just look at the house and the wall, I would like the material of the wall to relate more to the house. I appreciate that you're working with the driveway material, but that we won't be able to see that from the street.
So you would like to see a brick masonry structure to emulate the house?
An iron combination. The house across the street has an iron gate. It kind of lightens up their look. A brick and iron might sort of fit the house a little better and be slightly less heavy. What does everyone else think?
Yeah. Well, you have in your picture here, you have iron, right? You're still going to keep that iron?
No, that iron is coming.
It's coming off?
I just think it looks very massive, but using the wood. I know the Wrigley's have one on Lake Road when you want to have privacy, but I think it would be nice to have something a little bit lighter.
Brick and iron, I mean, as you look at the house from the street, I don't see the need for, where the land and stone fits in, apart for the driveway material, which we won't see any of driving by. What do you think?
Can you
You
tell
would
me,
see the cobblestone right out at the roadway, which is from the apron, or basically the apron right out by the roadway.
I just think it's more important to echo the material of the house and have it relate to the fence than the
Yeah, it
driveway
just seems
material.
like the setbacks out on Sheridan Road there you're about 25 foot back, so how are we're trying to tie the whole property together, because by the time you step back from the sidewalk and then step back from the property line, if you look at where the sidewalk is to where the fence is, how far back you keep pushing it back farther and farther, so how we're trying to tie it together with some of that roadside improvements and the apron on the sidewalk, or excuse me, on the drive.
can you tell us, is the fence across the street, does it follow the line of Sheridan Road, particularly at the gate, or is the gate
I'll bet that
perpendicular
was
to the
installed
house?
before they had the setback. Now there's a 3-foot setback, if I'm correct, Megan, from the property line, so everyone that sets it back like 3 foot and a couple inches, so you're not.
That's actually not
never
my
any
question. I'm wondering if the fence at the gate structure is parallel to the front of that house, or if it's askew to the front of the house and it's in line with Sheridan Road. And the reason I'm asking that question, there's kind of two things going on here on this site. One is that anything that happens on Sheridan Road wants to take some visual cues to what's on the other side of the street, for better or for worse. We're kind of stuck with those conditions across the street, whether you like them or not. And also what's behind it, which is a house, is another visual cue. So the first thing that I think about when I'm considering this is the scale, the overall scale of what this looks like and what the adventure is for the people driving by. And I think that the scale wants to, take some cues from both what's on this side of the fence, or this side of the street, as well as from the house. And so the 4-foot fence, to my eye, just in terms of a scale point of view, doesn't really bother me. I mean, a 2-foot fence wouldn't be appropriate across the street from this, or at least it wouldn't take any cue from this. 4 feet, I think, is kind of a nice compromise from a larger wall that would really be out of scale to it. So 4 feet, I can kind of live with it. Whether it should be brick that would go and definitely have an echo to the house, or whether it should be a lighter color that takes a reference from this, I think that's something that you could debate. Certainly, I don't think that I'd want to see the entrance columns to this side of the street have a greater proportion than the entrance columns on the other side of the street. They start to fight each other, and they don't need to be the same, but they need to, have a relative kind of scale to the fence that's appropriate. And I think that they want to be smaller, certainly, than what's drawn. Whether 2 feet is small enough or not, I'm debating. Did I mention that there's an opportunity for public testimony before the deliberation? I'm still asking a question.
I think it might
But the
just
question, I
create
think,
sort of a tunnel
is
feel.
if you considered, I think what's going on here, and I'm not sure, is that I think that this entrance is taking a reference off of the house, and it's actually parallel to the house, not to the road, because it wants to announce itself, the visitor, to the house. Your gates are parallel to the road, which kind of maximizes the interior yard of the house, but then doesn't allow the entrance gates to really relate, or maybe they do, maybe it's just me, but it seems like there might be an opportunity to turn those parallel to the house, and I just thought I'd asked if you had looked at that. And I don't know, maybe I'm just making
No, I think
stuff
that's a
up
good
here.
point.
They're so close to the house, it's not like they're, 50 or 60 feet away. Well, maybe they are, they're like 30 feet away, I guess.
The wall across the street, you may not look that way, but it's straight with Sheridan.
It is straight with Sheridan Road.
It doesn't turn at all.
Okay.
It's
And the gates themselves
straight
are in line
Sheridan
with
Road,
that?
And they line up
They do.
straight,
Okay.
straight with Sheridan Road.
That was actually the question.
Yeah.
Do we have other questions for the petitioner? I'd like to ask if there's any public comments, and then we can deliberate. I think we're ready for deliberation. Any public comments? And I see none, so our process point is good, and we're back free to deliberate.
Okay. Would you ever consider a fence that wasn't solid? I'm worried that in that part of Sheridan Road, we'll have sort of a tunnel feel with 2 solid fences on either side.
No, I
the
think,
house
I think
to the
what
north
we'd
of
really
you
like
is
to stay
open.
with is a solid masonry wall. And the reason, you know, we had considered brick at one time. We thought that incorporating the land and stone type pavers on the entrance would allow us to incorporate the land and stone, which Shelley and I tend to like more natural stone, and that's why we kind of like the land and stone. When we purchased the house, it was white paint, and so we had it sandblasted to expose the brick behind. You know, probably if we had to build a new house, we would have built the house in stone perhaps or something. But it is the brick. We thought by putting the cobbles at the carriageway in front of the house and out by the street in a more earth tone land and stone type look, that would fit into incorporate itself into the land and stone wall. I actually agree with staff when Jerry and staff talked about the height of the wall. I really think that in my opinion, 4 feet is not bad, because I think you have we have extensive shrubbery, which the staff had suggested that we put out there, and I think it's quite nice actually to kind of act as a softener, a buffer for the wall. And think with a mix of the 50% you know, year-round cover on the wall, you're not going to, as one of the commissioners suggested, you're not going to see just this wall every time you drive by. That's not our intent. Our intent is to get some privacy. Also, we want people to be able to see our home, you know, but see above the wall, and they will be able to as they drive by. More, you know, if you have an SUV, certainly you can probably see the entire home. If you're driving a sedan, you're still going to be able to see, you know, a good portion of the home, except for when you get to the pillars for the gates.
What color are the gates going to be? I think something that's throwing me in, you know, is looking at the elevation. You have these dark gates and these big pillars, you know, and as I said before, I don't have a lot of problem with the 4-foot wall, you know, solid brick, you know. It seems there's going to be a lot of landscaping, but, you know, I do have some problem with the gates, because they're so close together and they're such a large element, you know.
You know, we're looking at I think we're looking at a very light color, of white or just off-white, a taupe. It's something we're looking, and I don't know if that's the answer you want to hear, but we're looking at.
I prefer that to something really dark.
We're definitely not looking dark. It's going to be very light in color.
Yeah. You know. I mean, I think the visual cues. If you look at the house across the street, you know, the pillars are brick and they match the house, and the masonry and the color match, you know, the upper part of the house. And I really think, you know, the reason why we're having a problem with this is that the visual cues of, it's hard to gauge this. It's hard to gauge how tied this fence is to the house in terms of, you know, the visual appeal. And I feel personally that I need to see a rendering of what it would look like as I look at it, and see that it's not a fence that was created independent of the house, that there is some congruency in terms of material and color, and the landscape will play a factor in that as well. But I feel, just based on what's submitted, it's hard for me to say yes, and that's kind of where I'm at.
I think, if I might comment, when you see the fence across the street from our home, you see a wall. You know, you don't see anything but a wall. And if it were me, I would say that what we were proposing is, and I don't want to talk, I mean, we have great neighbors and everything, but that's just a wall, and it's set closer to the street than ours would be. Ours is going to be set back further with all sorts of landscaping in front of it to soften the wall. When you drive by the east side of Sheridan Road across from our home, you see a wall, you know?
Yeah, I'm not debating the wall. I'm saying that we have to prove this on the merits of the fence, how it ties and its congruency with the home. and independent of what's across the street. I was just using across the street as an example that even though it's a wall, there is some congruency. And I think the 4-foot wall is fine. If the pillars can be smaller or great, it's just, right now, it's really hard to just see that congruency come to life.
Well, I
So we
guess
could
one
say,
thing-
you know what, this feels good. I walk past the street. I mean, this is a big intersection. I mean, this is Westminster and Sheridan Road.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we can't just see it visually as we look at the house, what it will look like, it's very difficult to say
Well,
move forward.
You can
That's just
see it
reality.
right here in this room. This is 4 foot high, right here
No.
in the room.
Yeah,
I think he means
that's open.
But
You're
congruency
building.
to the house in terms of color and feel. So what I'm hearing is there's a brick house, and you would have built it maybe with a different stone if you couldn't, but you did what you could to take the white paint off of it, and now you're building the fence for what you really like in terms of soft earth tones. And that's great. It's just, I think there needs to be some congruency in us to look at that and say, okay, that seems to be congruent and symmetrical, and the color of the house on the top is reflective in the color of the gates, and the scale of the pillar is proportional to the size of the house and the fence, and it looks good. It's just very hard to do that with this rendering, and I think your intent is probably there. I'm just telling you, based on the evidence as we see it and what we're looking at, it's really difficult to say yes, it nailed it. At least that's where I'm at.
I think these gates are too heavy for the whole house and area, and you go by it pretty fast. So if you had the gates like they have across the street, at least you have gates if you want to have, if you have children out there and you're worried about the children or your dogs or something like that. But I think that this is too heavy to me for this house.
Well, I'm sympathetic to the, how proximate the front of the house is to Sheridan Road and the urgency for some kind of buffer between the quick-moving traffic and a front yard that probably will have some kids in it and playing, and I think they've done a nice job attempting the landscape treatment of it. Actually, I don't think that it's so far from something that could work real nice, but I do think that rather than give you some additional conditions and just send you on your way, this is something we'd probably like to take a look at again, and unless that creates some unusual hardship that we don't know about. And I would probably make a couple suggestions if you want to do that. I'm not sure that a lighter color gate is better than a darker color gate. I think in the composition that at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're trying to minimize the visual impact of this against the house. And so the question is what looks right with the house? And it's really imperative to see some kind of visual that shows the house behind this.
You just painted that color.
Yeah, but maybe it needs to be this color, and the reason I question it is because you've got a really light fence, or proposal for light stone fence, and then light gates are, it's like wearing an all-white suit with a white tie. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that you don't benefit from breaking up that mass. I know that you got that. But I mean, at the end of the day, the composition will be part landscaping, part gates, part fence, and I think it would be of a benefit to you to understand how that's going to look against the house. And I think it's a sales tool too, because we won't see a 60-foot length of limestone or a land and stone fence. We'll see little pieces of the fence poking out with some landscaping between. I think that would be nice. I do think that all of the brain damage here is at the gates themselves, whether they're light, whether they're dark, whether they're wood, whether they're iron, how big the pilasters are, how that all relates to the houses, I think where the heartburn is on this. And it is a big front door. It's not something that you drive by and don't see. I think, this is something that I think we're concerned about how it will look. And frankly, the fact that a gate a wall across the street doesn't have landscaping, that probably doesn't help the cause, because we would probably prefer to see landscaping there to cover that. I think gates are, fences and gates in town are a fairly controversial issue, because people drive by them, they do see them, and they're right in front of their eye, and so we're sensitive to it. I mean, I don't know if anybody has any other feelings, but I'm inclined to ask to table this for a session and see if you can, if that's
Yeah.
a reasonable thing.
Yeah, I would be inclined to continue the petition and have the petitioner take some of our comments and see if they can rework this project. You know, I agree with Jim that based on what I have in front of me, I don't think I could approve this petition as it's presented. Maybe there's other materials you can come back and show us that what you've proposed in this form, you know, with an elevation, with landscaping, the house in the background is perfectly fine, but with the materials that I have right now, I don't, you know, I've expressed my concerns, and I don't think I could approve the petition as it's presented.
I would really like you to encourage you to consider another material besides land and stone. I really feel that it is more important that the wall relate to the house instead of the driveway, in my mind. I think it's more visually appealing and just more fitting to the whole corner.
I think the fences, the gates are too heavy. I think maybe if you use wrought iron.
Iron with brick, maybe.
I will say we're pleased that you're making the investment in the property, and we're delighted to see that you're, you know, testing the waters for this kind of a thing and to try to understand the best way to get it done. And I hope you take these positive comments, not negative. We're not trying to beat you up on this. If it feels that way, I could understand it, but you know, it's a fairly major design element for this house, and we're just doing our job. So I'll ask for a motion to continue. I'm sorry, go ahead, Megan.
If I could just interject one thing. The petitioner did supply a three-dimensional rendering, and I apologize that it did not get placed in your packets this evening. That being said, I do think that there have been other issues expressed by the commission this evening that continuation is appropriate. I would suggest that maybe the petitioner stake the wall, the height of the wall at the property, and maybe have some materials on site for your site visit, so that there can be some of that visual comparison by the commission during this process.
That's great.
But we can continue the petition, but I guess we should check whether the petitioner wants us to continue it and bring something back. I mean, that's fine.
Well, at this point, I see no other choice. I just would like you to know that, you know, we purchased this home a few years ago, and through the entire process, I believe we've done nothing but enhance its beauty. It frankly, in my opinion, was somewhat of an eyesore when we bought it, and we've you know, it had architectural shingles. We put a brand new shake roof on it. We continued to had a two-car front load garage. We're finishing up on a three-car side load garage for it, doing extensive landscaping to it. In no way do we ever want to diminish you know, this property in any way, shape, or form. We thought we had gone through the process with staff to come to some agreement on, because in their comments to us, they were recommending approval this evening for this project. So we had thought that we were likely going to get approval from this commission. That being said, it's obvious that that will likely not happen this evening. We'll go back, take your considerations under consideration, and hopefully represent here in the very near future.
Well, we appreciate your work on this. I know that this is a lot of energy that you've expended in this house. We've seen this before when the garage was approved, and so you know, again, I wouldn't be you know, don't take it in the wrong way. We're just trying to help you and make it as good as we can.
We want to be good neighbors.
Good. I'll make a motion, or I'll ask for a motion to continue.
I'll move to continue the petition.
So moved by Commissioner Ransom. Do I have a second? Second. Seconded by Commissioner McTier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we'll continue that until the next session if it's resubmitted. We have one more request this evening. It's a request for a certificate of appropriateness to allow construction of an addition and alterations to the residence at 335 North Green Bay Road. And I'll ask one more time if any commissioner has any ex parte conflict. And I see none. And I think we'll let the petitioner present.
The foster, she's still in it. The only foster in this house.
Really? Oh, I just love it. It's such a nice feel.
Good evening again,
Once
Chairman
again,
Parrots and
yes.
Commissioners. Thanks again for listening to this petition. And we're here tonight to ask for a certificate of appropriateness for 335 North Green Bay Road. And what we're trying to do is make the addition that was built in 1989 a little bit more sympathetic to the original historic home that was built in 1896. Arthur Hewen is the original architect of the project, and the addition was done in 1989, and it's in really poor proportion to the existing home. Also, I have to mention that I'm joined here tonight by the homeowner, Justin Foley, and so I'm really thankful that he's taken this project on to really improve some of the additions that were not done so sensitively in the past. So our goal here tonight is to get a certificate of appropriateness to really make these, I think, what are really great improvements to the home. So we'll start with, again, the streetscapes of the existing home. This projector has to, is it the center button here? Source, okay. Hang on, there it is. It's getting there. It's thinking. There we go, great. So this is a view of the home from the driveway. It's a very large lot, over 3.5 acres, and the home was subdivided in the past, I believe in 1997. There's a lot off to the right that is a buildable lot, and that was subdivided in 1997. So the position of this photograph is essentially towards the back of the adjacent lot. So this home becomes in view pretty much just at the driveway from the street. It's fairly greatly screened. It's very difficult to even see it, even in the winter. So you can imagine in the summertime that it's almost invisible. And I think that's also the case from neighboring properties as well. So it's a very wooded, very heavily screened, beautiful property. So the home, this center block, my laser pointer, you can tell a two-story part of the home is the original home. So it's this mass, this block is the original home, and then you can start to see the addition that was done in '89. And I think that effort was to, there was an older garage that was not original, but still older. I think the effort of the addition was to connect the garage to the home. So it's a rather long addition and quite disproportionate. So our efforts here are to blend it in better with the home. And so we're going to go to some other photographs. This is a closer view of the front elevation. You can see the, it's a Georgian style architecture. And we certainly enjoy working with Georgians. And here's some streetscapes, so you can kind of see heavily wooded streetscapes, views from the driveway. It's a very long driveway. And so I think all those things really help screen the home. Not that we need to. I mean, it's a very beautiful home, so it'd be great to see more of it, actually. Some more. Here's a view from the street looking back at the lot. This is a view of the neighbor to the north. This is the street looking west, directly across the street. Here's a neighbor to the south. There's a beautiful Georgian to the south there as well. And here we start to see some of the pictures of the addition that we're going to do the majority of our work on. Starting here, you can see the peak of the older garage there. So most of our work is done on this portion of the home. There's the rear of that addition in '89.
Speak up just a little bit, John, thanks.
Pardon me?
Just speak up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, is that better?
We can just barely hear you, but
Yeah.
the folks at home probably can't at all.
Okay, maybe that's a good thing. All right, so, okay, great. So this is the addition on the back. Here's kind of an oblique view of the home. And let's continue on with more.
Is that rain?
Okay, let's go. Here's the site plan, and you can see the shaded additions. They are porches. All the additions are open porches. So the massing and the bulk is relatively minimal to those.
That was not your plan.
Okay, so I'm not going to hear you. Great, excellent, good to hear. This is a rendering of the front of the home, and you kind of see the whole home in its entirety, which is very difficult to see when you're actually out there because you can't stand far back enough to really see it. So anyways, this is a view if you were in the neighbor's property without trees. So you can see the work that we're proposing tonight is a new front entrance, a new window for the kitchen, and here we have the addition. So we want to create these porch elements that break up the length of the 1989 addition, and also bring some detailing to the addition that match the existing home. For instance, windows that have brick mold that match the existing home. So these 4 windows are new windows, spaced a little bit differently than what's out there now. I'll show you a photograph on that. And then add shutters. So detail that wall so it just fits in better with the existing home. Again, to break up the length and relatively lowness of this addition, which I think is one of the primary issues with it. It's so low, it doesn't quite fit in with the tall 2-story Georgian. So to get some verticality to the additions, we're introducing some elements that help. So these 3 dormers, a cupola. This is a side entry porch. This is the breakfast room right now, and so our thought in this detailing is to create a rhythm of design elements that tie the whole house together and give it a more cohesive, balanced composition. So again, we have that treatment at the front door. So I think it's a great improvement and really de-emphasizes the length and the insensitive detailing of the addition. This is a line drawing of the addition and the whole project. This is a little bit larger scale drawing, so we can go to some of the details. So I'm just going to point out some of the materials and details. I'm going to start at the left side. This is a side entry into a mudroom. It's a columned open porch with double columns that are Doric in design. We have a balustrade at the top. We have some steps that go up. It's all masonry, bluestone porch surface, and all the windows are simulated divided light with muntins and brick molding that match the existing windows of the home. Right now, the windows have wider muntins, and they don't have any brick mold on it. So some of those details are subtle, but we feel are very important to improve upon, and again, give it a consistency with the original home. So all the materials are wood. The windows are wood. The porch is a masonry base. This portion of the addition is a family room. It's going to remain as a family room. We've respaced the windows. We have shutters, brick mold, muntins that match. The dormers, again, are reflective of the dormers that are on the home as well. These are much smaller. A cupola. We're adding a chimney here for a fireplace in the family room. I think that's a vertical element that ties in well with the existing home as well. Here's the breakfast room. And again, to pull this whole house together, we have detailing that is consistent with this porch and the front entry porch. So we have the double columns, brick piers, and a balustrade above that as well.
Excuse me, I have one quick question. The window in the breakfast room that you just showed us looks significantly smaller than it does in this rendering.
That rendering was our initial artistic rendering, and we decided to make them smaller.
Great.
So that the columns work and the proportion.
Great, it looks much better.
They're a little large.
It looks much better, great.
Yeah, so we've developed it. This is a further developed
Excellent, excellent, thank you.
design. Here we have the rear of the home, and what we've done here is also created an open porch off of the sunroom. This is the garage beyond it. So again, the detailing is very consistent with the other proposed additions. This is a sunroom now, and there are windows there. So we're proposing French doors, again with brick mold to match existing, Munsons to match existing, for a new terrace that's going to be at one point on the back. Here, the change to this addition, there was a chimney here in the center, French doors. So that gets shifted from this location to that location. And we're replacing all the windows and doors in the addition to get a more sensitive detailing to match the existing home. Here is a newer window that's existing that we're going to replace, what we think is a more sensitive design as well. A theme through some of the triple windows in the home are a larger, wider center window with flanking small, less wide double hungs. So that is consistent with the existing home. It's in the exact same location and opening of the window that's there now. But what's important about this is that this is the kitchen of the home, and it's relatively small. And so in an effort to update the kitchen, we're requesting that we are able to put this size window on the other side of the home. But again, it's consistent in the detailing portion of existing windows in the historic home. These are some subsidiary elevations. This is the east elevation looking at the open porch that's adjacent to the sunroom and the garage. This is a window that we're putting in the 1989 addition. This is in the family room as well. Right now it's a blank wall. There are no windows in it. And so it looks very blank, and it's a darker space, so we're taking the opportunity to make a brighter interior. This is the plan. You can see how long the addition is, and all these things that we're doing, I think, are really breaking it up and just creating a much better composition. This we just provided tonight. It's on the drawings for the whole package. This is a bigger detail of what we're doing at the front door. The existing front door is a solid door, which is not original to the home.
I was going to ask that, yeah.
The brick enclosure that's there now has been modified significantly from the original. It used to be an open porch, an open loggia. There was no door, no windows. It was open. And so at some point, we don't know when, it was enclosed. You know, taking a guess, the door that's there looks pretty old, so it could be 40s, 50s. But one of the shortcomings of the home is that with a solid door in that foyer, there's no lighting. And I spent a lot of time in the home measuring and designing, and what I found is that when you're in the home and somebody approaches, rings the doorbell, you have no idea who's out there. So, because these windows are not part of the foyer. So what's great about this is that it just gives you that communication visually from the interior to the outside. So you know as soon as that's your door that you can actually identify. And so it's in the same opening. This is the original arch that was always there from what I can tell. So that's going to remain. So instead of the solid door, we're going to do a French door. So it's going to remain as an enclosed foyer. But instead of the roof canopy, we're going to do this double column Georgian entry. We stepped up the detailing from the other porches to give it a sense of hierarchy and more importance to the center front door. For instance, a little more detailing on the balustrade instead of a see-through picket type of fence, the solid panel. A lot of built-up cornice work, all in wood. And I think the proportion works well with the home. It's going to be slightly wider, this side-to-side dimension from outside the column to outside column. It's probably 1.5 feet wider than that roof form that's there now. So the stoop is going to get widened a little bit. The stoop that's there now is a new stoop done in the past 2 years. So it's going to be slightly wider. And we are looking at recreating the original stoop that went from wall to wall. And we'd like to do that. That was an original detail that is no longer there. Again, to create a little bit more landing space, an opportunity for benches and urns and some nice plant material. So this is the modification to the front And then there's...
So John, do you know what the front door was like for the 1800 structure? I mean, is there any plans or?
The original door is beyond this door.
Oh.
And so that was the original door, which is about 7, maybe 6 feet beyond this door.
Gotcha.
And it was half light, half French and half solid.
Mm-hmm.
That was, but it wasn't, it's not one large light, it's smaller lights. So that's still there, and that will remain.
Terrific.
So I don't know if you want to look at the window in the kitchen on the front. It's shown on the renderings. We can revisit that. But that's a very important design element that we feel really makes that kitchen work, balances that whole room front to back. So we really
Let's take the staff report real quick, and then I'm sure we'll have other questions.
Okay.
So to give you a chance to explain that. Megan?
Okay. Oops. Thanks, Chairman Barron. So I'm throwing my pen around. The original house on this property was built at the turn of the century, and an addition was put on before the Historic Preservation Commission was established. And I think the majority of the requested modifications are intended to provide detailing and architectural elements that are more compatible with the existing structure. So the only footprint changes that we're looking at are really the porch additions on the front and the back, and the rest of the modifications that Mr. Krasnodebski went over this evening are cosmetic to help bring that long addition and break up that long addition and make it more appropriate for the historic house. There are several components that the petitioner went through in detail, so I won't spend too much time commenting on that. Only to say that there was one element that staff is recommending be removed from the plan, and it's the railing detail over the breakfast room, primarily because it is just applied on that roof, and I think by removing that, the distance between the front entrance and the porch detailing helps improve those two details because they are different, and helps the front door entrance stand out a little bit more and provide a little bit more presence to the front entrance. Other than that, I think the other important condition of approval to note is with respect to site design. When we were out there evaluating the requests, we did see painted on the ground, as you probably did as well when you were visiting, future plans for pools and patios and gardens. Given the significance of the property and the large trees that are on the lot, the grading work that would probably need to happen to allow for pools and patios in that area, we are requesting that any future landscaping elements, patios, pools, outbuildings, whatever may be proposed, come back to the commission for approval. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. That's all I have tonight.
John, I had a question on the garage. So the bell structure, is that original to the home, or?
It's original to me, original to the garage, which I think was not original to the home, but done a long time ago.
Yeah.
So they looked like they were done at the same time.
Okay. Are you going to keep that?
Yes.
Because on a couple images it was gone, and here it is.
Yeah, we're keeping it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got it on I think the line drawing, but not on the rendering.
Was there a thought to try to break up the roof of the garage?
We did look at dormers. So it's something we considered and decided to leave it as an additional condition.
Yeah, because I don't know if you guys feel that. I mean, I really love the plans. I mean, it's great. It was really free to walk the property and then to see the changes. You could really see the details. Just bring the old house to life on the new extension. So I really like it. It's just when I kind of look at that, I get to the garage and it's kind of like, oh, did you?
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, there's this cool bell in this wooden structure, and then there's a flat garage again. And I was just curious if anyone else would say, oh, just that little extra inch of, one more detail, and then.
Right.
But, that's just
we looked at it and decided
at
that point not to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, the bell's cool. I mean, I like it.
Yeah.
This house would, in the 80s, if we'd had the Historic Preservation Commission, could never past. I mean, it just looked like it grew like topsy and didn't do too well, but what you've done is beautiful. But why are you having simulated divided lights instead of true divided light windows?
The major reason is the Muntins are wider on the new true divided light windows, so they'd be wider than the windows that are there. So with the simulator, we can get the exact same dimension on them, so we felt that was a critical issue. Because they do look too wide in comparison right now to the original home. So these new windows will match it.
I know this house, or I did know it in the 80s. I don't know it all expanded like it is until I saw it the other day, and I thought, oh, wow. So what you're doing is beautiful, I think. Thank you.
I love this house.
So-
I see you waiting with your son at the end of the driveway for the bus in the morning. I drive by you every morning. It's cute.
John, could you talk to us about the staff recommendation to remove the balustrade from above the sunroom? Just what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, our design philosophy on that element was, again, to tie together the house with the addition. So we felt that element helped tie it together. So we create this rhythm on the front elevation of front door, middle of the house, and side door. One of the other concepts or thoughts that we had in designing that element was that it has the appearance of this could have been a one-story porch that existed on the home at one point that got enclosed. So again, trying to make it all fit together, we felt that that was an important compositional element. You know, without it, it seems like, well, why do anything to that room? And so I think it's like an all or nothing. When we looked at the nothing option, it just wasn't right, you know, in our opinion. So we like it, we like to keep it. We feel that it fits.
I'm not sure why that's a recommendation in the staff report. I'm trying to get my mind around that. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I just don't understand why you're right, why this was put in there.
I think when we've seen this type of detail constructed, it's just created an awkward composition, just because there's no purpose to it, and without the flat roof to support a railing, in reality, it seems to be an awkward detail. So it's just based on our experience of seeing that type of detail constructed around town, and you know, providing a recommendation for you to either accept or change.
But not to remove the columns, that even though, okay. You know, I just think it changes, you know, the design elements that tie into the columns, you know, those three different sections.
John, and is the balustrade over the front, the new door, is that going to be different than?
Right, that was done on purpose to create a hierarchy. The front door, we believe, is the more important element, and so we have a little bit more formal, what I feel is a formal railing detail. So it's a solid panel detail. It's very short. It's 1'9" tall, so it's not like it's a large amount of millwork up there. But that was an effort to create a little bit of hierarchy. The newel posts are very similar in design to the other newels. The columns are. The cornice work is a little bit more ornate on the front door, so it's stepped up a couple notches on the front door as well in an effort to just differentiate. This is the main door of the home. It's a much smaller than the others, so we're trying to get that importance by creating a higher level of detail.
Well, I appreciate the staff remark on the balustrade above the, I'm sorry, is that the sunroom?
Breakfast room?
Breakfast room.
Yeah, breakfast, right.
It's a tough detail to pull off. It's a little bit arbitrary because it is a sloped roof, and so it's just an applied, and I understand what you're doing from the composition wise. It looks great in the two dimensions. I do wonder if it would be, and I have to say that without having read the staff recommendation, which I didn't do until you started giving me the report, I was wondering why that was there, but I also am scratching my head trying to decide if there's another way to relate that to the house but break up the elements of the house. I think compositionally it's successful to change something in between them. So
One thing maybe I should point out that it's not really on the sloped roof. We are pulling out, it's going to be 1.5 feet deep from that wall because the columns are 1 foot in diameter. It's a full column, it's not a half column. And that's going to be fully separated from the brick wall behind it, which is why we have those brick piers below. So there is a dimension that it's being pulled forward, creating a small flat roof there. So maybe that's not really clear on the drawings, but I think that helps in creating a less awkward, condition. So that post and those railings are not on a roof slope; they're on a flat, like all the other porches.
Okay. Any other questions? I guess I'll ask if there's any public comment. Well, it looks like we have one, so we'll let come on up and introduce yourself, and we'll.
Alice Moulton-Ely, 420 East Woodland Road in Lake Forest. I'm speaking on behalf of the Preservation Foundation, and I have some questions. First of all, this is a good improvement. Most of these things just look really good, and it helps break up the length of that new addition, because I've always thought it was rather awkward, too. I have a question. The replacement windows in the historic part of the house, that would be the 2 sets of windows in the kitchen and the 2 that are in the master. Are those going to be single glazed, like what I'm not sure the ones in the kitchen, I think those might be double right now, but will the ones in the master be single, like I'm assuming the ones are there now, single glazed? The columns on the east rear porch are polycast, and I'm wondering about the rest of the columns, particularly the front entryway. Will those be wood, or will they be polycast? And also, I didn't see in the packet that I had a west elevation of the second floor windows that are being moved 2.5 feet. And I'm just wondering if there is an elevation and what it looks like. Let's see, what else? I agree with staff about the railings over the north facade of the breakfast room. It does seem rather heavy, particularly because it's on a higher elevation compared to the family room and the entry, which have a similar type of detailing. It just seems very, very heavy. And that's really it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope someone was keeping track of those, but maybe I'll ask the petitioner if they want to try to answer those questions. Let's see how if we can keep them all straight, we might need help.
Right, maybe I'll address the windows
Please.
first. So on the existing home, the windows that we're redoing are in the kitchen alone. We're not going to touch the master. So the kitchen on the front of the home to the east, I'll go to that slide so you know exactly what we're talking about. Sorry about the scrolling here, but okay. All right, so this is the front elevation. So the only windows that we're touching in the existing home
Can you put up
are
your mic?
here. The only windows we're touching in the existing home are right here. So it is a subsidiary massing to the major portion of the home. Right now, there are 3 rooms in this location. There's a bathroom, a pantry, and a laundry room. And so those are the spaces that we're taking over to get the kitchen a little bit bigger. You know, those older homes, kitchens were typically very small. So this is an effort to get that kitchen, to really fit the home and fit the family. So this is a new window. Again, it's a larger middle double hung with flanking smaller double hungs. There's a window similar to it here, and then also on the back side of the original house, and on the side bay window here as well. So that's the only window on the front of the house. We're not doing anything on the side. On the rear, opposite this window, there are replacement windows there, and we're going to replace those replacement windows.
And
so those were double hung, double glazed. These we want to do insulated glass windows, so they are double glazed. Right now, everything else is single glazed with storm windows. So we're going to do double glazed. We're going to do the muntins to match, the brick mold to match. So that's the extent of the window replacement on the existing home. So that's one of the items. I think one of the other concerns was the columns. So the columns are polycast. I do that in the drawings. We've done wood in the past, and we've learned that wood columns just don't work. They just split and fall apart within 10 years. So in an effort to maintain quality and longevity, we've gone to those. when they're painted. You know, if you knock on them, you can feel a different, they're very solid, but I think it's a material that just works better. The problem with the wood columns, they're turned and they're made out of pieces, and so they split. You know, each 2-inch piece, done it. Just got tired of getting the callbacks, you know, to replace them. So I think that's just a smart thing to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
We already talked about the balustrade. Let's see.
A question on the west elevation? Or?
I don't have a west elevation. We're not making any changes to the west elevation.
Do we cover all your questions?
Are you shifting the windows 2.5 feet from the
No, no. We considered
Keep
that,
heavy
but we don't have it in
on
the
the-
proposal.
Oh,
No. Right?
This one? Yeah, that one they like. This is the one.
Oh, you know what? It was in my letter. In my letter.
Because this is a flat roof. So
Yeah.
actually, that's
Yeah.
new.
It was an original thing, but we decided not to do it.
Okay.
They're gonna remove that now?
It looks beautiful. It really does.
Other deliberations, I guess?
I like it.
It's a great house. We do wrestle a lot with, windows, particularly in historic houses, because, and for the same reason that you're talking about columns, we appreciate that we live in Chicago and there's cold weather and there's modern materials, and we try to strike a balance between, an authentic restoration of a window in a building that deserves that. And I think here we've got a house that's already seen some renovation that probably doesn't, include those kinds of materials. And so we're trying to strike a balance between what's there and what should be respected. And I appreciate the comment in the existing house, particularly about that window and what the concern anyway about trying to match that, make that maybe single glaze. I assume that was what the comment was. I'm not too caught up in it for this house, because I think what you're doing is a vast improvement to what's there, and that's always our goal, is to get better. So to impose kind of additional constraints on the windows is not what I would suggest, or even the columns here. The balustrade, my feeling about that is I don't have enough information to be contrary to my staff recommendation, so I'm inclined to respect it. I do think that it could be done well and it could be detailed well, and I would encourage you to be open-minded about that. And if you want to press on, to revisit that with the staff, you know how to do that. Probably some additional details would be helpful to see that. But I think for our review, we probably, I don't know, this is just my own opinion. I don't know if anybody else feels a different way about it.
I'm not so in love with it that I'd stop this petition to
fight
to make sure that it's in there. Certainly.
So you do have the luxury of that choice, I think, to tell us act or not. But I think that certainly this is a nice project. We'd be inclined to pass it and take it, probably our staff recommendation, unless you asked us not to, and to consider it without our staff recommendation. But I do think that the goal of creating a rhythm and giving yourself a little separation from the main body of the house, but yet tying it all together is a worthy goal, and I would encourage you to keep thinking about that and to encourage the staff to be open-minded about it, whether you come back with something like this or whether you have a different idea during the design development, or maybe it falls out of your landscaping conversation. Who knows? But I think it's a nuance, and I'd be, like I say, and I think it's a great looking house.
I'm not completely sold on the front door, French door. It's still sort of sticking with me as, I don't know, anybody else?
To do it
care?
as a solid door instead, you're
Yeah.
thinking? Yeah.
I appreciate the need for light and the visual.
My understanding is the
Who's the door?
foyer is very closed in with another door that used to be the original entrance, so it's kind of claustrophobic is the sense I got from you, and the
You're exactly
French
right.
door was trying to relieve some of that.
Right. And since there was no door there originally, so we felt that it's okay to change it, to make it a brighter space. And I've spent a lot of time in the home, and I think not knowing who's coming to your door, I can see a door with sidelights is great, but there's no opportunity for that here. So I think the only alternative is to have a visual connection from inside and out. So it does several things, I think, and since it's not an original door, I feel that it's appropriate and it works for the home.
So there's almost two front doors. One
That's right, that's right, yeah.
On one side of the foyer, and then
Correct.
the new front door from
Right.
the original. So
Right,
it's-
right, the original door is 8 feet beyond this door.
What
Yeah,
color will
so-
the door be? Black?
It's going to be a,
White?
we haven't given much thought to that. It's either going to be white to match the trim. It could be a stained door. It's probably going to be mahogany or something like that, so a dark wood.
If we do vote on this to grant a certificate of appropriateness, under number 1, it says the railing detail above the breakfast room shall be removed. And that was part of the conditions. So what are we going to do about that?
Well, I think that my inclination is to leave that in, and if the petitioner wants to come back and ask us, find a better way to do that, or, work with staff a little bit, they would come back and ask for a change,
Okay,
but that would be, I'd hate to hold them up for that detail. I think they'd probably prefer to move along, and if they want to revisit that, they could. I could see a way that could be detailed that would work, but the staff is smart guys, so I have to, I'm torn between knowing that the architect could probably pull it off and knowing that you've seen it done poorly too, and so.
One thing that you could do is request that we look closer at that detail, and if we can find a appropriate solution.
I think I'd be fine with that, actually.
That's consistent with the appearance that you're seeing tonight. We can do that, and if not, then it can be
Personally, I'd be okay. What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, give them the power to allow that if they agree with the detail. Because I think from the visual, it doesn't upset me visually. I appreciate that it's a tricky detail to pull off, and you've seen it pulled off poorly, and if it's pulled off poorly, then it's no good. So I think we can empower you to work on that. That's a nice compromise.
And I think ultimately, if it turns out to not look consistent to what you're seeing tonight, we would bring that detail back.
Okay.
To the commission.
Okay. Anything else? I'll ask for a motion. Unless there's something else.
I'd move to approve the petition with the condition number 1 modified as we just discussed.
Motion's made by Commissioner Ransom. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Preschlack. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Nay. Thank you very much. Pass.
Great, thank you very much.
Passes. Yeah. Nice job. All right, let's see if there's anything left on this agenda. There might be. There's a back page. It's an opportunity for the public to address the Historic Preservation Commission on non-agenda items, if there's any such thing. Any additional information from the staff?
Just one thing as you leave, I'd like to hand you a memo that was recently prepared by the city attorney for the city council as an update, a reminder, a refresher on the State Open Meetings Act. So I will hand that to you for your reading pleasure.
Okay, and do you know the date of our next meeting? Is that on the top of your list there or not?
It is not on the top of my list.
Okay.
But it would be the regular meeting date.
Okay, fine. Thank you. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by Commissioner McTier, second.
Seconded.
Seconded by Commissioner Preschlack. All in favor, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.